Welcome back to Monster in My Closet, the podcast where we shine a light on the professional world's darker corners. I'm Anil Saxena, joined by my co-host, the founder of Medusas, Morgan Hunter. Each episode, we tackle the fears and faux pas that haunt our work lives, with insights, interviews, and a dash of humor, some stupid analogies, and probably swearing. So if you've ever felt like you're navigating a workplace labyrinth, a never-ending approval process, an evil hall of mirrors, or a constantly ending quarter, you're in the right place. Let's confront those monsters together. Are you ready? Let's begin. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Monster in My Closet. So Morgan, this week, are we scared or scary?
We're scared and ill-prepared.
Yes, ill-prepared, and we are running around with open scissors in the dark.
Yes, someone's going to get hurt today.
Hopefully it's not us. And hopefully after listening to this episode, there's less of a likelihood that you'll get hurt. So today, we're going to wander into the labyrinth of indecision and ambiguity. And we're going to hear tales of strategic missteps and learn how a clear map can guide your team out of the woods and towards success. So the three topics we're going to talk about today: the risks of operating without a strategic plan and why it's one of the top reasons businesses and organizations fail, the process of developing and communicating a clear business strategy, aligning team efforts with organizational goals, and the notion of monitor, measure, and modify team efforts to support those plans. So Morgan, what's the rationale here for us talking about this, and why is somebody scared about not having a strategic plan?
Well, I'll start with why it's important and then run into why people are scared. Strategic plans are important because they inform every aspect of your business. It helps your teams align on common goals. So you're not like, that's not important to me. We're aligning up on the goals. It tells us when we're off track. It highlights our risk. It gives us an opportunity to proactively mitigate our risk. And honestly, for me, I don't know how people sleep at night without a business plan, because I would just be terrified. So I just said, we're scared. So I'm scared. I'm scared for them. But I think really it is super tough to build a business plan. Yeah. And it only gets easier with practice. So even if you're sitting in your little classroom getting your MBA and you had to build a business plan, that doing it once doesn't mean you're going to be successful doing it the second time, because every business is unique and all of the decisions and work has to go in every single time. So it's hard to get started. But if I don't have the information to put into my business plan, what if I build a business plan and it tells me something I don't want to know? I'm not going to make a profit for 3 years. I'm going to need 100 people to drive this level of revenue, and I don't have the funds. So it's scary to think that the dreams and the ideas you have might not be realized as you're building out that plan. So I think it's hard, and just you don't know what you're going to get into when you start running the numbers and doing the hard work.
Yeah. I would 100% agree with that. And I think it's that notion of, like, once you put something out there on paper or on a spreadsheet or whatever, it becomes more real. And so you then have to think about, well, how am I going to make this happen? And then the other part of it is, once you put a plan out there, what if you don't make it, right? What if you fail at the plan? And so oftentimes I hear a lot, I know this is a little bit of a different subject, but when people are setting goals, they're like, well, what if I don't achieve that goal? So I'd rather not set anything, because then whatever I do, it's like, yay, I'm successful because I did the thing. So I think it's really important that we try to demystify, right, this notion of strategic plans. I'm using my air quotes for those of you listening, if you can hear my bones clacking. One thing that I like to think about with regards to plans is linking it to your line of sight to the customer. So how is it that you are gaining or retaining customers? And when you're planning, that's just an easy thing. And then you can attach actions and activities towards those goals. I think one of the things that we want to talk a little bit about is what are the consequences of not having a clear strategic plan? What happens when you don't have?
Mhm. um, so I've had hundreds and hundreds of conversations with partners in the SaaS ecosystem, and I wanted to do this episode because there were a number of um, partners that I worked with that did not have business plans, and I found this out because I said, "What are your revenue goals?" To your point, right? What revenue you're driving, so we can know how where we're going. What are your revenue goals? And they said, make some, make a lot. And I had to summon every ounce of my professionalism to not lose my mind when they said that. And I said, can I see your business plan? And they said, no, because then you would hold us to it. So, I mean, there was no business plan. I know there was no business plan, but here's the end of the story. There were two different partners in recent history that I had that conversation with, and they both went out of business.
Yeah,
I wonder why. I wonder. There was absolutely no plan in place, so it was just like bunch ball. Everybody in the organization running around doing their own things, like just independently motivated. Whatever's important to them, whatever they're good at, that's what they're leaning into. And that's not what it takes to run a business.
yeah,
You got to
yeah.
be on
And
the same.
for those of you unaware, bunch ball is for children who play soccer or football in the rest of the world. And when they're young, all they do is everybody runs towards the ball in a big bunch. So oftentimes, as parents, we call that bunch ball. So for those of you that are not in the know, so I think the thing about a plan, though, a strategic plan, is that you've got to have targets, right? So I've got to have a revenue aspiration. But then the other part of it is that you have to have chunks or milestones or things that you're going to do to get you to that goal. It's not enough to kind of put a line in the sand to say, we're going to be $100 million business by 2027, right? You
Yeah,
actually have to have some stuff behind that.
yeah, and you know what? One of the things that I see that is often missing in business plans is the how,
Yeah.
right? Like, what is it you're exactly going to do? The business plan looks like, here's my revenue numbers and here's some marketing stuff. I mean, that's not the business plan. The funnel is not the plan, right? The plan has to, that funnel has to be supported by all of the operational things, the HR things, the decision making, the legal things, like it all has to feed up into and support that numbers. I often see people commit to very big initiatives. They're talking big, they're talking a big game, but they've never done anything at all in the back end in order to support that dream coming to life. And it just sits out there as a concept, mocking us, right?
Laughing at our fruitless endeavor. Yeah, I know there was a really large, real public dedicated effort that was a big corporate initiative in an organization that I worked with, and there were no plans attached. It was just kind of a goal
Mm-hmm.
that was put out there. And it led to many people doing a lot of work, and there wasn't really a positive impact. There really wasn't an impact that we could measure, but customers were clamoring to understand how they could be involved, how they could drive it. And we didn't have any answers. We couldn't even measure the progress. And so there were tons of people that were working on it, and it felt really fruitless and frustrating. There was a lot of people that were kind of being very territorial about their role in it, and it made us look dumb. Right? It made in
Yeah,
the eyes of the customer, and so there's got to
yeah,
be some meat behind that plan. There's got to be some.
yeah, 100%, 100%.
So do you have? Go ahead, Morgan. I'm sorry.
Nope.
I was just going to ask if you have any examples of when it's worked well.
Yeah. Uh, um, I would say. I personally had businesses where having a business plan worked well, which resulted in my company getting acquired. But I think there's other examples where if you're working in large ecosystems, you're going to see these little, I don't know the adjective I'm looking for here. They're highly motivated startups that are willing to do the work, right? They are
Right.
willing to do the work, not just on day one, but every single day. They have a plan. They absolutely know where they're going and what the end game is. And those partners really rocket up through the ecosystem. You could see them just like breaking out of the fray almost immediately. Like within 6 months, they look different than other partners in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And, when I was working with partners, I would always reach out and talk to them like, hey, I see you. What are you doing? Like, help me understand how you're running your business, blah, 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 blah. And it's really just having very well formulated plans and not just the numbers of the business plan, but how they differentiate themselves in the marketplace, which should be part of your business plan. And, how they're managing their people, which should be part of your business plan. So I would say that just 100% that those folks, those businesses out there that are running with a business plan, a well thought out business plan on day one, really succeed. Now, I'll caveat that and say, you got to work the plan, right? Plan the work the plan. Businesses also need to go in and look at what they said they were going to do and compare it against their current metrics and assess whether or not they need to make any changes. Are we not prioritizing the right thing? Have our business circumstances changed? It's okay. It's okay to have a strategic plan and go, well, that's a new thing, and then have to pivot a little bit to do that. But if you're not revisiting your business plan on a regular basis, you can't realign everybody when you need to go to pivot, right? You got to have those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I think it's that whole notion of monitor, measure, and modify as you go along, right? I think that there's a misconception that once you put a plan out there or you make a decision about things, which is an episode we'll have a little bit later about deciding, it's not that it's set in stone, right? You're not Moses with the tablets coming off of the
Yeah.
hill or the mountain or wherever he came from. It's you're taking a look at over time how you're performing and you're modifying as you go along, as the business needs change, as your organization changes. You're never completely 100% static or set in that plan, and how you were deciding on performance. I think it's really important that you build in a little bit of flexibility and know that at some point you have to admit when you're wrong. That plan I put in place, that was garbage plan. And so we need to start over, or we need to reevaluate where we're going or how we're going to get there.
Yeah. I have an example. Back in the day, we had our business plan put in place, and there's a revenue goal out there and there's a people goal out there, and we built some pipeline, and a lot of stuff closed in our pipeline at once. And we're going to have an upcoming episode, what happens if you're wildly successful. But I'll share this anecdote now. So we had the business plan, and we closed everything all at once. That was not everything, but a lot of it in the pipeline, and we didn't have the staff to deliver on it. Fact, right? So there was all kinds of business decisions that we had to make, which is, are we going to ask the customer to delay the start? Are we going to overburden our employees and ask them to work 24 hours a day? Are we going to, in the future, to prevent this from happening again, slow our roll in sales until we can afford to bring on the staff? So I think there was probably 3 days of conversation trying to figure out the best way to manage that situation, because it was a miracle. Like everything closed that was supposed to close, and we were small. We were just prepared for it. I love what you're saying about you really got to visit. You got to have the hard conversations and say, that didn't work. We thought it was going to go like in this nice straight line, and it went like a hockey stick. And now we have to make some decisions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you always have to have some contingencies, right? If things
Mhm.
go really, really well or things don't go really, really well. And you have to be willing to revisit those business decisions in that plan all the time. So, how do we communicate a clear business strategy to the team, right? So now we've created this thing, we're marching down a goal towards a goal, and we want to bring everybody along with us. How do we make that happen in a way that is productive and successful?
My answer might not be everybody's answer, but for me as a senior leader, if I'm executing on a business plan, I want you to give me every single solitary detail.
Hmm.
I want to know every single moving part, every one of your expectations, your metrics, your outcomes, etc. Because then what I'm going to do is try to align what I do to the goals that have been set forth in the business plan.
Yeah.
In my mind, every single person should be able to tie what they're doing somehow back up to the corporately agreed upon business plan. So, one, I'm going to want a lot of detail. And then the second piece is if I'm a manager and I have people and I'm telling them, hey, this is the business plan, here's all the detail, then I would, I think, first ask the employees to
Hmm.
attempt to align themselves to the business plan without my influence.
Interesting.
Because I think it's a good exercise mentally to understand how the work you do aligns to the business plan. And then if they needed help, I could coach and mentor them or whatever. Essentially, they should have goals that directly align to that business plan.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah, no, I think that that's good advice. And I think the only thing that I would add to that is I mentioned this before, this notion of line of sight. So I think it's really important for each individual employee to understand how are the actions that I'm taking impacting gaining or retaining customers.
Mhm.
So it feels like to me as a leader, we have to help translate that a little bit, right? And we have to be able to communicate how the activities and the actions that people are taking, aligning to that plan, are contributing to either gaining or retaining customers. And I think the other thing is that it's important for us as leaders to be able to articulate on a regular basis how actions that we're taking are aligning to that business plan. That's the other part of communicating. It can't be
Mhm.
like on January 15th, we're going to roll out the plan. And then that's the last time I talk about the plan until January 15th the next year. It's got to be constantly brought up and constantly looked at about how we're
Mhm.
tracking towards that.
Agreed.
So, do you have any experiences of maybe it not going well? anything
Mm.
where anything where you would maybe advise folks like these are things that you should avoid?
Well, there's so many things. I would say number one, don't build a business plan and put it in a drawer.
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, don't build a business plan if you have no idea how you're going to hit those targets. Don't make shit up. You no, seriously,
Yeah.
you got to run the numbers. Don't just like put a number out there. You got to know like how am I getting to that number, right? So I think when people just pull numbers out of their hat or anywhere else that they don't internalize how they're going to get to that number and all the cogs and wheels that have to turn organizationally to make that happen, I think that's really dangerous
Yeah.
because then everybody gets into scared. We're going to miss our target. We're going to miss our target. We're going to miss our target. We don't even know why we're missing our target
Yeah.
because we just put it out there with no eye towards operation or execution or any of that other stuff. So I think that those are the two big ones for me about
Yeah.
why things fail.
Well, and I think the other thing that I would add is that their roles aren't clearly defined in terms of
Mm.
who's doing what in relationship to that plan. And that has a tendency for everybody to bunch ball, right? To work towards
Mhm.
the same things. And we're not clearly defining how each person or each group or each team is
Mhm.
contributing to the success of that plan. They don't have metrics that they're tying to. I think one of the things like that in the team that I work with now, we definitely have very clearly defined metrics and measures. And it's helpful because then when we talk about things, we're talking about it in relationship to those metrics and measures and how we're tracking towards them or
Mhm.
how we can build programs to drive towards them. So it really helps as a coalescing metric or activity to drive action. So I think this is a really important topic, right? This notion of planning the work and working the plan. So as we're wrapping up, Morgan, what are the kind of key things that you feel like folks should take away from our conversation today?
Everything in your business depends on the plan, and everything should be aligned to the plan. And your plan needs to incorporate all aspects of your business, not just the sales number, right? It has to have the how in it. I absolutely agree with you that you need to put names on paper and make it very clear to the senior leaders in your organization what they're on the hook for. And they should have associated metrics that we all gather around to see if we're all doing what we said we're going to be doing. And I think revisiting the plan on a regular basis and understanding, like unpacking the numbers and understanding what's going wrong and correct it or pivot if you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing that I would add to that is that as you're building your plan, it's really important to ensure that you're leveraging data, real life
Mhm.
data, to make decisions. And I think the other thing is that, as we've talked about a lot, is that you want to make this something that's front and center all the time. It kind of reminds me of the employee voice survey, right? Like you can't take the survey and then publish results and then 2 weeks before the survey talk about all the things that you've done to make the survey to do something with the results, right? So that people take the survey and have good feelings about it. You've
It
got
never
to,
happened.
yeah, I know. We'd never do that in corporations. But, but I think it's important to make sure that it's something that's front and center and that you
Yeah.
are leaning in on it all the time. All right.
Mhm.
So hopefully people feel a little less scared about strategic plans and working the plan. And if nothing else, they've either A, found the light switch in the dark room, or B, put away the scissors. I mean, one of the two is fine if you can't do both, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, two things before we wrap up. So, one is that if you enjoyed this podcast, and I mean, if you've listened up to this point, you've obviously enjoyed it, or you are a masochist. So please rate and share this podcast to your friends because they listen to you. I know sometimes it's hard to believe, but they do, and they like you. The second thing is that we are having a ongoing fundraiser for medusas.org, and
Woo.
we really need your support to build a more inclusive and more productive SaaS environment. So please think about donating, think about bringing your organization into the fundraiser to match funds. And so, thank you everybody for listening to another episode of Monster in My Closet, and we'll see you next time. As we wrap up another episode here at Monster in My Closet, we want to thank you, our fearless listeners, for joining us on this journey of exploring what scares us or when we're scary. Professionally, of course. Together, we've ventured deep into the workplace wilderness armed with humor, insights, and a touch of irreverence, and hopefully learned something together along the way. But our journey doesn't end here. Monster in My Closet is proud to be part of Medusas.org. Medusas is a membership-driven, non-profit organization serving underrepresented groups, minorities, and individuals with disabilities who are doing business in the software as a service space. We're a community created by SaaS professionals, for SaaS professionals, and even the SaaS curious.
Visit medusas.org to discover how you can contribute to a movement that empowers professionals to face their workplace monsters head on. Don't forget to subscribe, share with your colleagues, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us shine a light on the monsters lurking in the professional closet, making our community braver, stronger, and a little bit wiser. Until next time, keep challenging the status quo, embrace the journey, and remember, no monster is too big when we face it together. Cheers.